Good afternoon. Yat Hasi Lo Kurola in Dire Cal Nez Ekro Nichi Hananat Zito Hatashi Hilda Sidnende the Jean Hutende to a kuchit a tada a kuroshi hashinzal. Welcome all of you listeners on social media. We've gone through all the interviews. Well, I shouldn't say all the interviews, but the interviews that we've done for the Navajo Nation presidential race. And I want to thank the president's candidate who came forward, and we interviewed them, heard their platform. We got to know who they are, as well as majority of the council of delegates who are running. And so now that we're into the primaries, just keep in mind that these interviews are going to continue, and we're going to try to get a collective group that are going to be in unison with each other in terms of their philosophy as who they are for the Navajo Nation, the future of the Navajo Nation, because there is a lot of things that have happened, as you well know, that because of some of the basic characters, basic know-hows of these elected leaders, and I don't hold anything back to the leaders. We are in desperate need of leaders who can fully understand business. Business is obviously concerning and getting the money, having the money, managing the money, dispersing the money, and making sure that your business is also covered. And these are the things that I think that the council, that the president, and even the Department of Justice, and these are the reasons why that we are in trouble with the ARPA funds. These are the reasons why that all of these are last minute things that they're trying to throw out there, trying to resolve. And the greatest disappointment to me the other night when I was listening to the Navajo Nation Council special session, Navajo People, that is a prime example of why that we're in trouble. Because this type of vetting, this type of looking at every legislation concerning the ARPA funds and other funds, every fund that is associated to the Navajo Nation should have been reviewed in the first month of these council delegates being in their seat, not at the end. And these are why that, like one company called NCC, they have to spend $22 million by the end of September. And that's a tragedy. You know that. Who's going to spend $22 million and still do the paperwork and all the red tape? And a lot of the problems that I heard with that particular company, the representative, their attitude is, I cannot stand this. I've heard this. I've heard it on the Navajo Nation. Tribal employees go in there and they say, well, we have this particular project. This is what we offered. This is what was supposed to happen. But when somebody applies, what happens is that they go in there and they have this attitude of how not to make it happen. Okay? How can we not have this company or this individual comply with the regulations? Rather than, let's take this customer and make this customer's dream come true. Let's do everything possible because we have plenty of money to go around, 22 million. That wasn't the attitude. I even called them. I talked to a representative, and to my disappointment, this NCC company, she comes on and she says, if you're not here for an application, I don't have time to talk to you. I've got better things to do. I says, well, if I were applying, would you talk to me like this? Is this how your attitude is? And no wonder that you still have $22 million. You are the prime example of why that these monies are in trouble, because you overregulate, you find reasons why you can't make this happen. And these are the type of things that I've seen for the past 40 years that I've been working with the Navajo Nation government. I got heavily involved when Peter McDonald was the chairman. I witnessed, and I've worked with every president and every council since that started. So just know that how it's going to happen, how that these monies are not going to be sent back to Washington. You know, just one last figure. This is what makes me crazy. I talked to the other company, and I heard figures like, since we got the contract, we got 1,100 Navajo applicants. And we only approved 400, and 600 was denied. And you have 22 million, and you have 400,000 Navajo on and off the reservation. How many of those Navajos own mortgages? Definitely not on the Navajo Nation, most likely off the Navajo Nation. But those people, I know some of them. 22 million to be spent, otherwise goes back to Washington. Look at the math. How is that going to happen? And the last thing that this company did, NCC, and this lady's name is Christina Rowe. All you listeners that have been with me, thousands of you, of the 20 to 30,000 who follow me, you've heard my rant and rave. This is a prime example. She said yesterday, just yesterday, she said, the portal is closed. How the hell is that supposed to happen? 22 million and they closed the portal. That is just outrageous, unconscionable, and irresponsible. The Navajo Nation Council, you listen to my podcast, and I'm telling you, there's monies like companies like this. They need to go. Zinni Holmes, Robert Worsley, and this gentleman, David Costello, and people like Brian from Navajo Thaw. How many monies? People already knew about it, and they captured it before the Navajo Nation even did anything. And the Justice Department approved these contracts without knowing, without letting the presidents or the council know. The Justice Department organized these contracts. What happened to the 164 process? It is, it makes me burn. So I call the other company, Red Feather Development Group. And I had to go through 2 telephone transfers. The first telephone transfer, she said, well, I don't really know what you're talking about. Let me transfer you to another person. Another person comes on, and she started getting a little defensive. And I thought, well, I'm just asking questions. I'd like to do an interview. And she says, well, let me just give you to my boss. So this is the boss that has agreed. And I want to thank him. I want to thank this company, because this is how to do it. You don't go in there. You don't get defensive. You don't sit back. You don't just, further hide the money, further hide what's going to be the responsibilities, because this is Navajo money. This is the Navajo people's money that these companies have. So this gentleman, he's the executive director of this, and I'll have him introduce himself. Uh, his name is Joe Seidenberg. Welcome, Joe. You heard my spiel. That's a lot to cover, and thanks for bearing with us. Can you introduce yourself, your clan? Just kidding. Go ahead. So, Joe.
Yate, everyone. It's an honor to be here. Cal, we appreciate you reaching out to hear more about our organization and give us a chance to introduce ourselves more broadly to the nation and to the Diné people. A little bit on my background, as everyone can see that's watching the stream. I am non-native, but my clans come from, I'm from Indiana originally. I've been living in Flagstaff, Arizona for 17 years. And my background is primarily in nonprofit management. And initially, I had a very deep passion for international development work. So I was a Peace Corps volunteer at one point in my life. I worked in Africa. I also did a stint with the UN in Kenya. But I gravitated towards the Southwest. I love Flagstaff, Arizona, and the Colorado Plateau. I've had experience working in forestry, which is relevant for our work today because we do tons and tons of firewood delivery across Navajo Nation. Yeah, I have a son and a family. But that's a little bit on me. I work for Red Feather Development Group. We're a nonprofit housing organization. We've been in the business for over 30 years. Red Feather is a Lakota Sioux name, and we are named in honor of the first individual that we built a house for. Her name was Catherine Red Feather, on the Pine Ridge Reservation. And our founders, the founders of Red Feather, Robert and Anita Young, were non-native individuals, and they were part of a program called Adopt an Elder. And they were pen pals with Catherine. And Catherine had said to them, they had arranged to go out and meet her in person, and to travel to Pine Ridge. And she said, would you mind picking up a few items at the store, a couple of groceries for me? And they're like, no problem. And when they got to Catherine's house, and I think it was one of their first times visiting a reservation, they were absolutely shocked by the conditions that they found Catherine living in and many other tribal members. And that planted the seed for what became a nonprofit. Robert and Anita they just organized their friends, a bunch of volunteers, mostly non-native folks at the time. And they built a house for her. And for many years, because we started in Pine Ridge, the Great Plains, there's a lot of straw. We were building straw bale houses because they're really energy efficient. You need a lot of volunteers to do it because they're volunteer labor intensive. But roughly 15, 18 years ago, we started working with the Hopi tribe. And then for the past decade, we've been focused on Navajo Nation. And we, for many years, we continued our new construction program, particularly kind of like the Habitat for Humanity model, using volunteers. But it was a real challenge. Anyone that's tried to build new houses at the grassroots level, you have to raise a lot of money. It's complicated dealing with home site lease agreements or a different process on the Hopi Nation, and getting all the private foundation money. For many, many years, up until really when COVID hit, we were predominantly private foundation funding. So raising money through corporations, private family foundations in the past. we've been so blessed to have some celebrity power like Oprah and Robert Redford. More recently, like Johnny Depp supporting our work. And we really try and build programs from the ground up. And so I would say over the past 10 years, we've really moved away from new construction, and we've focused entirely on housing repairs because it's a lot easier to go out and help people in their existing homes than to have to try and deal with the land issues and raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for one family. We do as much as possible to spread the love around, so to speak, which requires us to triage. Often our average repairs have slowly been growing and growing, but on the lower end, it might just be a new wood stove for a family, or an ADA ramp. On the more One of the most common things we get families asking for are roofs, because roofs are expensive to repair, and unfortunately, when you're really struggling, maybe you're underemployed or unemployed, like instead of fixing your roof, you just let that small leak go, but that turns into damaging insulation and drywall, as many folks know. And then what would have been maybe a small minor roof repair turns into a $25,000 repair. But in addition to so we have three main focal areas. Number one is the hub of our wheel. We call it our Native Home Resource Network. And essentially that's our case management program where families call us, we listen to them, we hear about their needs, and then we try and identify if there's a quick fix solution for them, like maybe we can refer them to another agency, or maybe we can qualify them for one of the grants that Red Feather receives. So, and under that program, we do lots of other things. Like, for example, we have what we call our direct solutions program. And knowing, like, often we don't have Navajo half funding, which we're going to talk about shortly. We've struggled to pull together larger grants. So our direct solutions program is our way of helping as many people as we can at a much lower level. And what it does is it's $500 to $1,000 for someone to work on their own do-it-yourself home project. And we have them go to a hardware store of their choosing, and we help fund a project that they're going to lead and implement on their own or with family members. The other section and also, well, I should continue, under our Native Home Resource Network, that is our program that we use to get to firewood to people's houses. We distribute HEPA filters. A lot of folks are burning wood stoves in their homes. Over 90% of families I have the data for Arizona, are relying on wood as a primary heat source. Wood is, we also know it's a really important preferred way to heat homes, but it also can create an unhealthy indoor air quality. So things like HEPA filters, which we distribute through our Native Home Resource Network, help people improve their indoor air quality at a relatively low cost to our organization and funders. And then our other pillar outside of construction and Native Home Resource Network is our education pillar. And we're famous for teaching do-it-yourself classes. And for example, we have a women's home repair class where we teach people how to properly use a tape measure, power tools. They build a toolbox, and we fill that toolbox with tools, and people feel a sense of resiliency, like that they can tackle. Maybe they can't replace their roof, but now they're much more engaged in their home. And we're trying to, one of the things our education initiatives try and get at is that a lot of the nonprofits, we recognize we contribute to it, even governments, like we are giving out free resources just to help out people. And we believe all those free resources are justified given the history of colonialism and poverty and how difficult it is to escape. We can't stand idly by and let families fall through the cracks and suffer. But our education is geared towards building homeowner confidence and awareness. And then on the other side of our education, we're really focused on workforce development. We want to see Navajo contracting and Hopi contracting businesses thrive. So we get grant funding to offer certification trainings in the trades that help people grow their business. We have a scholarship program for Native contractors that they can use to go back to school or even purchase new tires for a truck or a new tool to help them be more effective at their job. So those collectively are our 3 programs that we have today. We have a staff of 12. Almost all of our staff comes from the communities that we serve. So our boots on the ground, our managers are a mix of native and non-native, but we are here to serve the Diné people and the Navajo Nation, and the same for Hopi and any other tribe that we work with. And we wanted to come on air today because we know that there's a lot of people upset out there. We've seen the social media concerns and comments. We see it before Navajo Half existed, that people are struggling, they're frustrated, they want help. And we're trying to find the solutions to do that. Cal, I'm not going to be the guy that's going to talk ill of the nation. We are extremely grateful to the Navajo Nation. This half grant, which we can get into, was our first big funding opportunity with the nation, and we're just trying to do our absolute best to execute the work. But when you're in social service delivery, whether you're a tribal housing authority, and it's not unique to Navajo or Hopi, or you're, any of the tribal agencies, like the people that I interact with and work with, even the folks that you mentioned, Native Community Capital, these are good folks behind these organizations, behind these government agencies. I think we just all run into a lot of challenges in executing the work. The federal regulations are, especially for a small nonprofit like Red Feather, we've grown over the last 7 years. Before, we almost had no federal dollars, and because of COVID and the pandemic and CARES Act and ARPA, we've really grown as an organization and learned to execute these federal dollars. But following all the rules and regulations takes time, and it creates wait lists, and it creates frustrated clients. I encourage everyone to, you have to walk in someone else's shoes to truly know what it's like to be them and to execute that work. So we're really quick as a society to pass judgment, and often those judgments are founded on facts, but sometimes those facts can blur the lines.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. And welcome listeners out there that are joining us, and I do appreciate it. And one of the things that's interesting to me, you see it from your lens, and the Navajo people at the grassroots level, we see it at our level, and I'm sure that the elected leaders see this at their level. So I like to explore how Red Feather and the Navajo Nation was awarded this funding. How did it happen, and was it a contract? You call it a half grant. I've never heard of that. And remember, I'm a businessman of 40 years owning my own business. So my mindset is way different than some of these elected leaders. And we're going to be talking about business and what the figures in terms of monies that you were given and how much has been spent. So can you give us that background as far as the actual contract coming to you?
Yeah, absolutely. We're trying to be as transparent as possible with the public. Anyone that wants to see the latest numbers, you can visit the redfeather.org website, and we have a section there. You'll have to navigate at the top it says Navajo Housing Assistance Fund. And we are going to roll out a new update today. So if you're listening now, give us a couple hours, because we've just been refining the data. But the way this came into existence, and just to set the stage a little bit, again, a decade of serving Navajo, bringing in collectively, millions of dollars prior to ever receiving any money from Navajo Nation, outside money that we brought to the community. So the point being, we're a service provider, and we care about our mission. We're a mission-driven organization, and we wanted to help. So we've been establishing our reputation. More and more people have been learning about us. In the past, we've had, like, one of our big funders is Arizona Public Service. They pay us to weatherize their customers' homes in Arizona. Because of that relationship, there was a big, they called it a consent decree around the Four Corners power plant in New Mexico, where we worked with the power plant and helped, and the utility owners, and helped manage a fund that ended up weatherizing and installing new wood stoves in 360 houses. So I think people started hearing about the name Red Feather, and that we were providing housing repairs and education. And so we got connected with Division of Children and Family Services, formerly known as Social Services. They had, not to be frank, I can't remember exactly who contacted who. We likely solicited them and introduced ourselves, and we learned that they had some ARPA funding under, again, it's a U.S. Treasury, or is the overseer of the funds, but housing assistance funds, tribes across the nation, as well as cities and municipalities, all received half funding. And we were explicitly, so when they learned about our services, they said, "Hey, Joe, this is a complicated process." We knew it was what we were getting into, that it was, and we came to the game late. So this is June of 2025, maybe May of 2025. And we started, they had to go through the process of creating an RFP on their end. They issued that RFP through official Navajo Office of Contracting. That may not be the right term. We put together a proposal, which was, vetted and scored independently by Navajo Nation, not Division of Children and Family Services. It's outside agencies, is my understanding, within Navajo Nation. I think we were probably the only group that responded to that RFP, and the RFP was specific. So under half, there are a lot of things you can do. You can do mortgage assistance, a lot of things I don't know about. The part that our RFP was written specifically to provide housing repairs and the addition of livable space if a home was overcrowded. We're not allowed to do any mortgage payments. We're not allowed to build new houses. U.S. Treasury set up the guidelines for this. So you had to have a very specific, you had to be able to demonstrate that you were negatively impacted by the COVID pandemic. We had to create a lot of different paperwork and forms and everything. And this is, we can talk about this here in a second, about denials to clients. But so our award was $3.1 million total, and $2.5 million of that is for labor and materials. So the balance is for our, covering all of our programmatic and administrative expenses. And Treasury set up, they have a rule that they call your administrative expenses and what they call indirect costs, which are shared costs, things like your rent for your office, anything that is in a shared cost pool cannot exceed 15%. So we're delivering a service at a fraction of the cost of what a for-profit company could. But all of our costs are covered under half. And I can give you some specific data right now if you want. So approximately 92 applications were received once we opened up once we were selected, approved to the Navajo Nation. And that, so from the time we started working on that application in June of 25, we didn't have a contract until February of 2026. So, and that, it's frustrating for everyone, Navajo Nation staff, Red Feather, because it's so hard to find housing repair money. And man, we wish we had just another big runway, because we have no issues spending the money. Our biggest problem right now is not having enough contractors available to us to move jobs fast enough. But to date, so contract issued in February of 26, we were not able to start doing projects until May of 26. And that's because once we had our contract, then we had to go through formal procurement to build our contractor base. You can't just start hiring contractors and using them on the Navajo Nation. Navajo Nation has something called the source list, which is a list of pre-qualified contractors. We engaged everyone on that list and didn't get the great response that we were hoping for. Part of it could be a lot of those companies, and this is just speculative on my part, they would prefer to build a big subdivision versus being sent. Our projects are scattered sites across the Navajo Nation. But so we're not swinging hammers until May. Application portal opened in February, is now closed as well, because we don't have enough funds to go around is the reason we closed ours. But we received 92 applications. So far, we've completed 17 projects. We have assessed 86 houses. So we've been to 86 homes, done home assessments. The applications themselves, we're spending 3 to 4 hours per application, and that's if everything's there. We can't approve an application if it doesn't have all the federal required forms. To date, so we've expended of the 3.1, of the 2.5 that's for construction, we've spent 810,000. And then if you count the funds we have obligated, meaning we've received contractor estimates for those projects, and they're in the batter's box, so to speak, we're at 1.29 million. Our administrative costs to date are 363,000. So we have approximately about $1 million to go. We have, let's see, I said 17 projects completed. We have 22 projects in process right now. We have 2 projects that every project that we get an estimate on, we have to do we have to make sure that the estimate is considered reasonable. So, and to do that, and this is very business-like, we use something called cost book, and a cost book is a national database of what average costs are for construction projects. So if a contractor's estimate comes in and it's above that, we can't use it. We send it back to them. We say, sharpen your pencil. But so we have 22 in progress, and we have 86 approved applicants that we could help. There's no way we're going to get to all of those. Our contract our approved contract was to serve a minimum of 48 houses. We already have the numbers to hit that. Our goal was not to exceed 50,000 per project. The reason we were keeping it at 50,000 and not more is because we wanted to help as many families as possible. And we know with 50K, we can go in and we can help. We can get someone a new roof. We can give them, update their furnace, add, we can weatherize their house, we can do ADA improvements. So health and safety only. We're not giving fancy kitchens or just giving someone fancy floors unless it's a tripping hazard. We will replace it. Of the 92 applications we received, we've only denied 9 individuals. 9. And those denials were based on U.S. Treasury rules. So either over income, issues with the home site lease agreement, and the income requirements most people are qualified for this program. They're quite generous. So you'd have to have fairly significant over income. I believe I don't have the specific tables in front of me, but we're happy to share those, and they're on our website. And the other reason for denials was there's a rule that you can't duplicate services. So there's other agencies with ARPA funding. If someone had received a bathroom upgrade with ARPA funding, we're not allowed to go in and make further improvements on that house. So we have to be careful of screening houses, but only 9 homes of 92 total. And I think our story and the work that we're doing, it has its own unique set of complications and rules. And I can't speak to the other subrecipient and their efforts, but that's a different story altogether. Sorry, I'll pause there because I could keep rambling, and I don't.
Yeah, let me. See why this is important that we get to understand, because as you all know, there's problems with other contracts concerning the ARPA funds. I'm aware of Navajo Nation government having contracted with so many contracts that have been funneled through that organization, this organization, that organization. And as of the other night, this is the first time that I've ever heard of that there's monies that were available for this social service program. I believe that's not the correct word, but
housing repair program.
Yeah, for the you call it the Navajo Nation Child and something.
That's the division that received the housing assistance fund through U.S. Treasury.
So that was a direct contract. It didn't go through the Navajo Nation. It went directly.
I'm sure I don't know how that funneled through, but I would assume it goes, and assuming it goes through Navajo Nation first, and then is given to the appropriate divisions that have the capacity to execute those awards.
So you went in there, and your company presented and responded to the public announcement that this contract was out there. Was that how you responded, or was there a direct contact?
No, I mean, I think we had some informal introductions, and they said, if you're interested, you'll need to respond to the RFP, which, is they helped develop it. But again, the RFP is administered by the Navajo Office of Contracting, and I'm likely saying that incorrectly.
Did you overhear from this department that they were waiting for the 164 process, waiting for signatures here, there? Did you?
Yes, not too much of it ongoing. It's just that it took a lot of time. It was it was a learning experience for us on how to comply with Navajo Business Regulatory, Navajo Office of Labor Relations, just even their oversight. And they're doing this because it's important, like our insurance, having the right verbiage and having to update insurance policies so that you're compliant with risk. So you have to go through judicial review, insurance risk, a lot of those things. And I presume, they're dealing not just with Red Feather, but all these other businesses. Everyone's trying to spend the millions and millions of ARPA dollars that were flowing to tribal communities. And it takes time, like
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
a worker
Yeah.
that sits at a desk every day, I know, like
Yeah.
I got 30 things on my to-do list, and trying to get through as many as I can.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. You know, now your portal's closed too. Uh, you know, but you have till the end of September. So what you're telling me is that based on your figures, is that you say you had 92 applications, and of that, 9 were denied. So that pretty much leaves like 83.
Yes.
So now you've closed your portal, but you've got enough application that you're going to go through and allocate. Well, see, this is where it doesn't make financially. When I used to cost estimate for my supplies, for my business, for my printers, photography, all of that to produce projects, I had to figure out how much money, who I still had to pay. This in essence is how that I want to explore the companies of how they're going to engage in spending the rest of the money. And yours is 3.1. And really what you have just said is that you have about $1 million left over. So I'm going to try to get into costs here too, because as a nonprofit organization, a for-profit business, the typical business uh, markups for every materials is you hire a company that's your subcontractor to you. The subcontractor then goes out there, does the bid. And I swear, because I also have done, I used to own a home in Salt Lake City, Utah. I renovated my basement personally. I also renovated my bathrooms. I've done all of this. I know the costs. This is Salt Lake City metric system, and it's quite high. I would probably say that it would hit equivalent to, to national standards. The Navajo Nation, there's no housing codes. The Navajo Nation, the cost is like maybe 25, uh, I would say 25% less than national. So my estimate, like I heard on Facebook, here, there, everywhere, everybody's saying that they can do a bathroom addition for $2,000. What are your average costs for bathroom renovations?
I would love to find the contractor that could do a $2,000 bathroom renovation. That's a great figure. I would say on average a bathroom renovation, which would be and we do a lot of walk-in showers because we're trying to help a lot of the folks that score. We have to score and rank all the 92 applications we received, and it's based on Treasury provided. Well, actually, I don't think they're Treasury provided for this one, but we have internal scoring: elders, disabled, veterans, families with children, etc. That helps us because there's always overwhelming demand. But I would actually, Cal, we see expenses to operate on Navajo tending to be much higher than national averages, because especially if you're a Navajo contractor, you might get better price breaks because they're already based there. And almost all the contractors we're working with are Navajo-owned firms because it's required. A few are non-native, but they have Navajo staff. But the windshield time alone, like if you have to bring just to get a chimney cleaning, if you want to send someone out from Flagstaff, like a chimney shop, you're going to pay $500 a house just for a chimney cleaning. Our bathroom renovations run anywhere from 10 to 25,000, and that's new shower, walk-in shower, new vanity, new faucets, etc. Often new flooring in the bathroom as well, and shower surround. A wood stove. I'll throw some other costs at you. We typically do a wood stove for. It depends on the contractor, but between $3,000 to $5,000 for, and that's hearth pad, chimney pipe, and wood stoves are a really big part of our work because once again, how many families are using wood stoves and their impact on health. We'll see families that have used single walled chimney pipe, and once we go up into the attic, you can, kid you not, the roofing members are charred because that pipe was so hot and so close, and that's why you see a lot of homes that unfortunately are lost in chimney fires. I mean, why we prioritize it. What else can I say about costs? Costs are not so much our problem right now. It is our issue is not having enough contractors to move through that wait list of 80. We have 92 houses applications received minus the 8. Those are the eligible households that we could get to. The reason we closed our portal, and I want the audience to know, like, that's for Navajo half, but we are always taking applications, and it's a double-edged sword. By doing so, people get angry. They're like, why are you taking my application if you can't help me? But we also need those applications so when the funding does come in, and we never know exactly where we're going to get all our dollars, that we have applications ready. A lot of our funders want to know, like, what's in your pipeline? Who's next in line? Do you have legitimate projects? So we never want to turn anyone away. So if half is closed and you're frustrated and you're like, I can't apply to Red Feather, we have our normal application on our website. We're always accepting new applicants. Yes, it might mean you're put on a wait list, and we might not be able to likely can't give you that immediate time frame. And that's why we have those other programs. Hey, are you interested in a direct solution? Can we give you a HEPA filter? How can we try and get housing resources to people in need?
Yeah. And I think that, thank you for sharing that. And again, this is extremely important because it comes back to the overall $3.1 million is cost. You're getting started in May 26, May, June, July, August. That's 3 months ago.
Yep.
Within that 3 months, you had 92 applications. And so I assume that this 92 applications, they're complete by now, I would assume, or close to it. And now you're looking for some more. But here's my question. When you talk about the costs, you just threw out some figures that says 10,000s to what now?
10 to 20 on the high end for a bathroom remodel. A new roof can run anywhere from very similar. It depends. We've been doing lots of metal roofs. Those are closer to 15 to 20,000 for a metal roof. It depends if you pull it off and all the roof decking's rotted, and you got to, or even roofing members, and you have to replace structural components of the roof. Wood stoves, I said, we're running about 5,000. A ramp, ADA ramp, is about the same, 5,000. Those are our labor and material costs, not our costs. Our costs have to be covered under the 15% administrative cap. And we are allowed to have programmatic costs. Those are separate.
So as I understand what you're saying is that Red Feather it doesn't have a labor force to.
Not in, correct.
It doesn't have the construction. You don't have any boots on the ground on location.
Not employees.
You bring contractors or subcontractors
Yes, correct.
who are licensed. Who
Our
are
gift is
licensed. So who does the pricing? They do or you
they,
do?
they submit an estimate, and then we use um, software to see if their pricing is past what we call the cost reasonable test. That's like using national cost book data. That is an it's a accepted form of federal procurement vetting. So most of our contractors know how to keep their pricing low enough so that we don't deny their estimates. Um,
Do you go
but
on
yeah,
site and do you go on site and look at these or go along with the company and look at what the problem is, or you just basically rely on what they do on location?
we start, so we receive the application. Once it's finalized, then our field team goes to the home. We meet with the homeowner. We listen to them. We take a lot of pride in how we interact with clients. Like once you're our client, it like we work really hard to make sure that you are heard and your voice is heard, and that you set the priorities for your house. So we often will say, what are your top 3 priorities? And if we can get them all funded with the money we have, that's what we work on. So once we, and we're not construction experts. We're good at construction management, which is separate than, we're not trade people. We're nonprofit professionals. We're community liaisons. We're the voice between the contractor, the client, and the funding agencies. We're the facilitator of everything. So
So
we
who's
procure these contractors, and I mean, we're creating a lot of jobs for tribal contractors right now on Navajo.
right? So who does let's say the work starts and the work's going along. Who does the checking? Who does the review? Who does the sign offs on the progress and also signs off on the final?
That is our construction management team. Malcolm Kisto and Alicia Summers lead that. And then we have field staff that work with them. So for example, the field staff, they go to the house, they're the client's liaison. It gets back to, once we have all of that, it goes to construction management. They go down their list of who's available for the next project, and what's, do we need a roofing contractor? Do we need an electrician? We send that person to the house. They develop the estimate. They submit it to us. We use our sophisticated software to do cost reasonableness. Once that's approved, then they're given a green light, and then the field staff are there to help the client. If the client isn't happy with performance or anything like that, we work collectively. We're a small organization, 12 staff. We don't all work in construction, but we're a team. It's a team effort to make all this happen. Along with these contractors that we're working with, most of which we have really good relationships with because we've been using them over the past decade. But our challenge right now, again, is we don't have enough contractors to spend to get to the houses fast enough. And part of that is even today, I mean, we know the urgency. Like we're continuing to recall. We've called some contractors on the source list 3 to 4 times, and we don't get a response. But we're not giving up. Like we're continuing to bother people to say, "Are you available? Do you want to work?" And then we're trying to explore. One of our biggest challenges is trying to build the source list. So we had some Navajo Diné contractors that were already working. There's a lot of contractors working on Navajo that don't know who business regulatory is. They don't know that there's a tax office. They don't, and like we have to, when we do find them, convince them that it's worth their time to jump through the hoops, because if you're a contractor and you want to make money at Navajo, if you can't receive federal dollars, you're shooting yourself in the foot in a way, because then you're left for private foundation money or homeowners that have their own money and are looking for a contractor. And most people across Navajo, they know, like, because we get the calls all the time. Hey, I have my own money. I just need a contractor. Can you refer one to me? And everyone's protective of their contractors, because you don't want to lose them. You got to keep them busy when you have them.
Yeah. Well, I think that those are some of the, things that are just inherent in the business, because everybody's fighting for survival and to be able to provide service to the Navajo people and to be able to expend some of these monies. But, then again, I mean, this is where it's really from my side and looking at it from the grassroots level. It's really perplexing to me why that Navajo Nation money has to be taken, given to somebody, and that somebody distributes the money. And in that process, there is a difference in terms of billing for a nonprofit and a billing for a for-profit business. And whatever the federal regulations are, how that the company who received the original contract, what is going to be their metric that they use in order for them to survive as an organization, because you guys do have an overhead. So that's the reason why I was asking. The bottom line is that the Navajo people, they need help. And when they need help, they sometimes have no idea where to go, what to do. When they do find this portal to you guys, there's going to be a step-by-step thing that they're going to do. And probably most likely go with your guidelines. But ultimately, the money does belong to the Navajo people, and it's probably in your checking account. And so while it's in your checking account for you to give and to disperse money, you've got a situation now where you've got applicants that are going to fulfill the remainder of the $1 million, I would assume. I don't see how it's going to happen unless, but there is going to be a markup. And that markup is kind of what you just mentioned, 15%. They give you a bid, the contractor, and you most likely bring it back in and mark it up.
No.
And and so if it doesn't happen, then so if it doesn't, because you already have allocated part of that 3.1 million, about 1 million is going to you guys, Red Feather, to oversee this entire contract. So am I right on that, right?
It's about 600,000 is what Red Feather would collect if we successfully spend all of the funding. And that's for, yes, all the you could call that our markup, but we don't earn it if we don't, it's written into our budget, which we're not allowed to change. 2.5 million of that 3.1 is for direct housing repairs. The rest of it is for running a business. And, the public, they hear the word nonprofit. Nonprofit is a tax status. It also means you're mission driven, but it doesn't mean you can't cover your expenses. And if we are ever able to set aside a little bit of money, that money goes back into our mission. It helps ensure that we're here for decades to come, serving the Navajo people. Or until, our goal, to be frank, it would be to work ourselves out of the job. And Red Feather, like I mentioned in the beginning, we've worked with a lot of tribes and we get lots of requests. We're able to pivot, like, hey, we're not doing housing repairs this year. We're just doing workshops for the community, or we're just doing firewood. It depends on, we're always hustling to find money. And something, it's funny because when we post jobs, we'll often get complaints, even from professionals. They're like, "That's all you pay your staff? Are you kidding me? How?" And then the work that we do is quite complex. All the federal rules and regulations, you have to be familiar in policy and law, and it's like, so if we want to attract good people, just because you're a nonprofit doesn't mean you're paying $15 an hour. Our starting wages at Red Feather, because we use Flagstaff and Flagstaff has a very high minimum wage standard, we start employment at $22 an hour. And people think that that's, like, if you're trying to attract talent, especially at the management level. So I'll stand by, like, we publish our financials. We're very transparent with the public about our costs. We want to make sure contractors are well paid, because a thriving Deneb workforce, contracting businesses, why we have the scholarship program. If we're truly interested in getting the communities out of poverty. To get out of poverty, you can't have 50% unemployment or whatever the latest statistic is. You need jobs. Our ability to impact the job network is relatively small. If you look at our tiny 3.1 million, and yes, that, we're supporting 9 contracting businesses. Those guys on average have 4 to 5 employees. But it's short-lived. February to September of 2026, they had a heyday of all the projects they could ask for. We were feeding them, and we still couldn't get the funds spent. Our goal is to spend every penny, but it will come down to how fast our contractors can work and if we can onboard any new contractors.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. The reason why I want to spin a lot of this is so that the people know out there, because a lot of the processes, and it goes back to the criticism of the Navajo Nation government, because I've always said this, they're not business minded. And majority of those elected leaders, from the president to all the council delegates, and even to the people from the Department of Justice, and even at the divisions and departments, they have no business experience. So a lot of this information of how the money is being distributed, how the money comes to play, and then how that once it's awarded to somebody, how that particular company then distributes, so that there's a benefit, there is a return on on any contracts. And this is what I try to teach the Navajo people, is that we need to understand the mechanism, even from within the Navajo Nation side. Throughout my interviews with everybody, I ask these questions, the 164 process, how that these companies come into be, who business regulatory is. Let me tell you about business regulatory and their source list. It's a great idea. It's a beautiful idea. I've been there to be able to upgrade and ask them that they need to upgrade and improve that whole system. The system is probably about 9% successful. And most of these companies that are listed on there, I myself have tried to call all the contractors. Yeah, I don't get any callbacks. And it's a crying shame. They're either so busy or they don't give how to make money. And so, yeah, the business is coming to them, but it doesn't work. So the Navajo people, you have companies like Red Feather, who's willing to go out there and to work with you and to be able to have you comply. And the Navajo Nation government, business regulatory, you have been against Navajo entrepreneurs who are willing to get on the source list, but you're the gatekeeper, and you need to loosen up some of those requirements that are ridiculous. You're supposed to be on our side, not the side of the Navajo Nation government. So somehow this needs to come together. So now let's morph into the how are we, what are we going to do so that this money does not go back to Washington, D.C.? What is your plan from this point on? The part that I'm disappointed to hear, honestly, is that you said you also had the portal is closed. That just puts it in a situation where continued hopelessness for the Navajo people. While we heard on the council floor the other day about this money, all these monies need to be spent, but the companies that are supposed to be spending it for us are now closing their portals. That doesn't make sense. That metric is not working. I don't know how you guys are going to do it. So
Well,
how are we not going to send this money back to Washington, D.C.? I don't think, based on closing the portal, I don't see
well,
the math.
the yeah, the portal isn't the problem. Again, 86 completed home assessments. We have no shortage of clients, of qualified clients. So even if it was open, like they're not eligible for half funding because we already have too many half eligible clients as it is. If we could just get enough again, I keep going back to its contractor capacity is our big issue right now. The homes are there, the clients are qualified, and again, like yes, the half portal is closed, but not the red feather portal. That's our generic. Before half existed, we've always had a portal for clients to apply. We want people to keep applying, but they should know, like we're not sure where the funds are going to come from. How do we spend the remaining 1 million? Our strategy so far. So we're also, today I was on a phone call with business regulatory, and they were helping me brainstorm ideas and being extremely helpful. I spoke with Navajo Labor Relations as well. Some contractors just don't want to jump through the hoops, is what we're discovering. Hey, you need an affirmative action plan. You have to advertise in a Navajo publication. And once you do those things, then because if I could call ABC Contracting in Flagstaff and say, do you want to work? We need you going. They might say, well, what do I have to do? And when we tell them, they're like, sounds like a lot of work. I got enough clients here in town. But we're continuing every day to, as I've said, try and identify and onboard new contractors. That is our best shot. We just need increased contracting capacity. So if anyone's listening out there that's a contractor and wants to work, please give us a call. We hold people's hands in helping them navigate the red tape, which we've been learning ourselves. At the beginning of February, when we first got our contract, we were very green with understanding all the rules and regulations. We want to, this is super important to us to spend this funds. We want to demonstrate to Division of Children and Family Services, to the President's office, to every agency that, we're a capable nonprofit. It pains us not to spend this money. We care deeply about the work that we do. Our staff show up every day and they're working their butts off, and they're getting some, it's hard on them when clients call and they're yelling at them and they're trying to field those calls. And they're really giving their all. They don't work, they work for nonprofit wages, because they care about their community that they were born and raised in, most of them. And they're trying to give back and do their part in navigating this crazy whirlwind of federal funds that hit the Navajo Nation over the last 8 years that just was beyond most people's capacity to effectively get through. There's so much of it, and people are like, "Hey, this is not fair. Why are we just letting these funds go back?" And it's not for a lack of trying on the behalf of all the subrecipients and agencies. Yes, there are lessons to be learned, but I'm not going to. I don't walk in their shoes either, so I don't know what their days are like. But I'm sure that almost everyone I work with is giving 100%.
Yeah. Let's break this down. You have 1 million. You say you have to spend. I want to get a real detailed plan. 1 point what?
1.3, or sorry, so 1.29 has been obligated, and we received 3.1, so plus the 300, so we've spent about 1.6 in total. So we're like halfway through right now, and with a month to go.
How much do you have remaining?
In construction funds, about $1 million.
So within that million, I'm based on just what the numbers that you gave me. Your start time was May, and today is August, literally 26th, and that's within that time frame: May, June, July, August. That's 3 months. Within that 3 months, you had 92 applicants, and 86 of those were approved. So I take those figures for the remainder from now till the end of the month. If you had the rest of what you monthly approve previously, taking those numbers, that would make it basically about 30 recipients. And so I take the $1 million and I divide that by the 30 recipients, if that's going to be the case. So that projection turns out to be approximately about $10,000 plus that you're going to spend on each client the rest of the way to avoid.
To clarify, yeah, while we've had more qualified applicants than our goal was 48 houses at $50K a house, but not every house is 50,000. So I think we're going to at least serve, and I'm just estimating, like right now we've done 17, we have 22 in progress. That's 39 houses. I'm quite confident we will hit our 48 houses. If each house had gotten the full allocation, all those other homes that are qualified for the program, it doesn't mean that we can serve them. It just meant that they met the qualifications for the program. We didn't make commitments that we're going to come and fix things. They applied, and some people, again, there's always overwhelming demand. Whether and I said this earlier, housing authorities, everyone, there's always a wait list. There's always more people asking for help than there is funding to go around. Now, if we would have been smart and networked sooner and connected with Navajo Nation and got this contract 5 years ago, we're gaining speed, right? Like we probably could have doubled or tripled what we spent. But that's not the reality. That didn't happen. We were late to the game, which, we are so desperate for finding housing repair dollars. It pains me that we didn't learn about it sooner and make it happen. Um, but we're doing our best within the very short time frame that we have to help as many of those qualified applicants as we can, which is going to, if we get through the full million, maybe we're closer to 60 houses, but that requires us to onboard more contractors, which
So
is our,
what do you expect to spend on the 60 houses?
if you took an average, if our initial target was 48 homes at 50 K per house, but we're seeing some houses we're able to resolve their issues with 20,000. I'm just guessing, like I would say 30K average.
Yeah.
Somewhere, and I'm not great at math just off the cuff. I would really need
Well,
to.
these are important because, like I'm trying to figure out if you now have initiated plan Z to get this information out. And you just said, in your own words, that you wish you would have jumped on this a little earlier. And, as a business owner, these are some of the things that, I mean, when I got a contract, I jumped on it and I I left every stone unturned to make sure that there's a target. I delivered it, all my projects about 3 weeks or actually on date. And so, I looked at every stone, every stone was unturned. And so now the portal's closed and we're still kind of guessing how many applicants that you're planning on, that Red Feather is planning on approving. But then again, you're still up against a tight deadline, and these applicants still have to be vetted. Why wasn't that?
No,
Why are we in this mode now?
let me clarify, or try to clarify. We have more than enough vetted clients, approved, vetted. They're basically in the batter's box, waiting for a contractor to be assigned to their project. And when I said important clarification, when I wish I would have jumped on this earlier, I meant I wish I would have known about Navajo or the housing assistance U.S. Treasury money, and could have been, because we're pretty good at reaching out to foundations and funders. But we didn't learn about it until the 11th hour, and once we did, that took a long process. But ever since we've gotten a green light from Navajo Nation, it's been full throttle, working our tails off to execute the work. So we have not left stones unturned since we were given a green light.
So it sounds to me like your company, Red Feather, is the one that found this on the United States government portal, and you brought this idea to the Navajo Nation. The Navajo Nation was unaware of it.
No, Navajo Nation had their half funding, and the Housing Assistance Fund. I don't know the specific date. I don't have it in front of me, but it was 4 or 5 years ago, and they procured their vendor, their subrecipient. And then I think that they were like, all right, we're not moving it fast enough. Let's reach out and we're not seeing enough activity on Navajo Nation. A lot of the work initially, for the way they were structuring it, was happening for families living off the nation, anywhere in the United States. And they said, we need someone that's good at facilitating housing repairs locally. That's us. We're one of the few nonprofits that serve the Navajo Nation. There's not a lot of nonprofits doing what we do. There's a couple others, random church groups that come out, but we're not a dedicated housing repair nonprofit. And so I don't recall the exact introduction or whatever, but we got introduced and said, hey, you guys might be a good fit for this. There's going to be an RFP published. We hope you respond to it.
So yeah, let's I mean, I feel like I don't have, there's not very much that I can talk about giving additional hope to the Navajo people that there's going to be others out there, even in terms of the contractors. Um, because number one, I don't like this closing the portal information, because that just puts everybody on their back heels. Like, okay, well, if it's closed, you know, why should I care? And now, if I was running, I've always ran a business, whether I fulfill a certain aspect of it, I never closed anything. I always kept things, especially clients, customers. I never closed anything. I kept record for future stuff. And, it just gives hopelessness. And right now, yeah, what you're telling me is that, yes, your company has already identified a list. So what do you want to tell the Navajo Nation now? What is it? Because I was hoping to say, okay, we have 1 million, everybody come in, and we'll, even if it's $1,000, we'll fix your house. But then again, you're running up against another deadline, and that is Navajo contractors. I know the problem there. I'm familiar with it very, very deeply. And so it's like, again, I don't know if there's an answer in reference to my question, is that how we're going to spend this, the remaining money, so that we don't send it back to the federal government. Are you absolutely certain that you have enough clientele right now to cover that? Because if you don't have that projection, I honestly going to tell you, the math the math isn't working out.
Yes, we are absolutely certain that we have enough qualified candidates. And while half is closed, again, we encourage people to still fill out an application for service. It's our general how before half existed. That portal never closes. That wait list never ends. It just grows, but that also gives out hopelessness. We've all heard the stories of people saying, "I've been on the wait list with such and so for three years, 5 years. I'm still waiting."
Yep.
But we try, and we're aware of that, and we don't know. Like, we don't want to close. We don't close our portal. The half portal is closed because we'd be lying to people if we said keep applying to Navajo half. You might get help. Like, we already have too many clients that are qualified. What I would love to work out with Navajo Nation and for them to know is that we're talented at what we do. We're good at it, and we would love to have more funding. Like, does the Navajo help Navajo Nation give us? All right, yeah, this money is going back to Treasury. Dig into your coffers and give us funding to help the 92 people that we did receive, minus the 8 or 9 that were not qualified. Or maybe we can go back and help all 92. Our wait list is much bigger than that. If we were to pull our Navajo Nation wait list, not considering what funding they were applying for, it's several hundred people at least. And the more people learn about you, the bigger the list grows. We have other programs. So we are the main weatherization provider for the state of New Mexico on Navajo Nation. So anyone in New Mexico that has not worked with us and wants help, they should apply to Red Feather. That funding renew, knock on wood, is federal. But every year since 1976, that funding, it's called the Weatherization Assistance Program, in its Department of Energy, it renews. It's one of the longest standing federal programs. that program on average, once again, like it's tightly regulated, but we help. I think to date, I don't have this figure in front of me. We've helped 80 households since 2020. We started that in 24 or 25. Um, so like, don't give up hope is what I tell people. If you're New Mexico based, apply for our weatherization program. We're going to continue to ask the Navajo Nation for more funding if it's there. We try and build bridges with um, Division for Community Development, with Navajo Housing Authority. We partner with the other nonprofits that we're aware of that are operating on Navajo. Like, hey, if we don't have resources, can we send them to um, a different entity where they can get help? Like our goal is to help the people, um, and we're doing our best to make it happen.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you coming forward and talking to me. Again, this information is for the Navajo Nation. This information is for you, the candidates that are now running for the president, Justin Jones, and also Crystalline Curley. I speak to you. I also speak to all the council delegates candidates. When you get into office, you've got to get in there and to be able to look at all the monies that are tied to the Navajo Nation, every aspect of it. And because these are Navajo monies and we don't get into these type of last minute BS that is hindering the whole entire Navajo Nation progress, the betterment of people's lives. Isn't that what we're all about? It's the money. And unfortunately, this company, and I find them to be very transparent, which I do really, really appreciate. They're coming forward and saying, this is who we are, this is what we tried to do. Yes, May 26th, I don't understand how the Navajo Nation sat on this thing for this long, as well as all of the other fundings. It is absolutely irresponsible of the Navajo Nation Council. It's irresponsible for the Navajo Nation Justice Department for them not to see, and even the business regulatory. I've worked with you. I've known the type of barriers that you place in there to make this every things that shouldn't be unnecessarily complicated. The gatekeeping is just horrendous, and you call it red tape. And but it looks like they're doing their best to be able to fulfill. And I guess it's just an update and a true introduction to the Navajo Nation, because this is going to go worldwide. I mean, we have listeners from all over the United States. And so, Joe, is there anything that you want to share in closing here that gives some sort of a hope?
Yeah, to a fault, maybe not a fault. I'm a bridge builder. I see so much divisiveness in the world. And we're here to, where we can, offer hope and help improve lives. And we believe a healthy home makes healthy families. And it's tragic and sad that some of the living conditions that we encounter, and we just want to be part of the solution, and want to be a resource to the nation and to families. Yeah, and Cal, I'm honored that you gave us a chance to speak today. I hope that this podcast is heard by others and shared. And yeah, I look forward to maybe doing an update with you when this is all over, and talking about our new strategies. I'd be happy to come on anytime that you'd have us. You're muted for some reason.
Okay. Okay. What I'd like to do is in 2 weeks, can we get back together? Because I think there will be like, see where your progress is, how things are going.
Sure, I'd love to do a check-in.
Yeah. So let's plan on that because I think the Navajo Nation, if there's any need for, is, of course, I can see your qualifications. They're going to be a big, gigantic hurdle. But so, if there's any others that should apply, I'm sure you have a wait list too as well. But anyway, so let's just check in and see the status. I think that'd be great. And I am really appreciative that you came on air because some people just choose to stick their head in the ground like an ostrich. So thank you again, Red Feather Development Group, and they're located in Flagstaff, Arizona, and the director is Joe Seidenberg, and he's with us. And again, thank you, Joe, for being here and giving us an update. So I'll give you the last word, whatever you want to say in closing, and we'll be done.
Thank you for the opportunity. And, it's a real honor to be able to have Red Feather serve the Navajo Nation and the Diné people. I find so much meaning in the work that we do and being able to help people achieve a healthy home and healthier lives.
Okay. Take care, Joe. We'll speak to you in 2 weeks.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Hagona.